Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Today we have Yolanda Valery, who is the former head of digital engagement at Ocado. And I have to say that she is an excellent journalist who I had the pleasure to work with in the BBC during many, many years. And the last I saw her was at the BBC, and she was leading an excellent team as a head of social media for the BBC World Service.
Of which she was a member.
Yes.
So that explains the whole thing.
Yes. I'm not being biased, but she's really, really good. And well, today, Yolanda, you're here to tell us more about your passion, the power of using content to connect with your customer and with people, and how to do it in a way that people really pay attention. So I guess that we need to start by having an understanding. What is a content that connects?
Content that connects, one of the realizations that I had when I left the world of journalism is that content was a much bigger category than you and me would have understood as such when we were in the publishing spectrum. So content can be anything from a product description to an article telling people how to solve a problem that is associated to that particular product. So content that connects, however, can be applied to each one of these categories. I think for me the key is in where do you start, and the place where you start is that customer. I like when I'm talking about customers. Sorry, am I popping?
Is there feedback?
Yeah.
Do you hear some? For her.
From okay, try it now. Let's see. All right, there you go. Testing.
Okay.
Okay. Like that? Okay.
Okay,
Awesome.
so you were saying that is the content that instead of starting with the story, you started with the customer.
The customer. And when it comes to content, I like to think of them as audience, because when you're trying to engage with them via content, that's what they are. So you are competing not only with any other piece of information that comes from products similar to yours, you're also competing with the kind of content that you do now at Sky. You are competing with lots and lots of different messages. So that means you need to consider what that person is as a member of the audience. So what is the thing that is going to actually touch the keys in the keyboard for this person? And that's how you start the process. I'm saying this because in my experience in corporate environments, it's still very common that organizations are very focused on what I want to say. And every time I face this challenge, I've gone back to them and said, look, it's all very good that you want to say X, but is anyone interested? That sounds kind of really obvious, but the reality is organizations do tend to think that way, particularly if you move into, say, the realm of PR, which I feel, oh God. I feel PR is like my nemesis. They understand content in a way that I don't know. I don't know if it's old-fashioned. I forgive me if in the room I have PR specialists, but I find that kind of content is very much focused on what I want to say as an organization, whereas where I'm coming from, thank you. Shall I get rid? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah? You hear me better here? Yeah? No.
Can you hear?
Yeah?
Okay.
Can you all hear? Where I'm coming from is if I want the customer or my audience to be engaged with my product or service that I'm trying to sell, then this is where I need to start. And it's a funny thing because you know how commercial organizations are all about being customer-centric.
Yes.
Why does that proposition change when it comes to content? Content needs to be customer-centric. It's just a piece of a product that is going to support your main product and it's going to make it fly, and for that reason you need to make it customer-centric as well.
So then how do you start? How do you then say, okay, let's really make content that is customer-centric? Where do we start?
So this concept, you are familiar with it. I completely imported it from the BBC into Ocado Group particularly. Is this idea of audience needs. So the first thing that you need to understand is what is it that that customer is trying to achieve, or what is the need that they have at a moment in time for which you can serve customers content, that is going to be of value. In the BBC, there is this thing called, or there used to be at least, I don't know these days, there used to be this thing called the wheel of needs, right? So the way that content was understood was on the basis of verbs, really. Is this content inspiring me? Is it informing me? Is it keeping me on trend? Is it keeping me, what were the other categories? I even forgot.
Educates me.
Is educating me? Is it giving me perspective? So that kind of framework, again, is something that I apply to Ocado. In the case of Ocado, I must say, I didn't work for the supermarket. This is important because obviously I say Ocado, you think supermarket. I work for the B2B side of the business, whereby the amazing technology that Ocado utilizes to do their grocery operation is sold to other business worldwide. So what were the needs of that customer? That customer needed, for example, to validate. The customer was the partner who was buying the technology and spending a tidy amount of money on that. We're talking millions and millions. So what did they need? They needed to, first and foremost, feel that they were investing their money in the right technology. So we needed to produce content that validated that. Now, here's the thing. How do I produce content that validates that? If I just write a piece that says, you are very clever because you bought this technology, that is just not going to move the needle at all. Obviously, there's an element here whereby you need to connect with this customer and to make it feel real and authentic. So ways around it. We, for example, created a product that we call the P2P. It was the partner-to-partner conversation. So think of it as a testimonial, but instead of just having a customer telling you a long-winded story of how they implemented the Ocado solution, what we did was to sit together two partners. For example, we had the partner from Australia talking to the partner in Canada.
Okay.
What they both had in common was the large geography. And what they didn't have in common was the fact that Canada was very advanced in the process, whereas Australia was very new. So in this conversation, the guy from Canada was advising the lady from Australia. And they were very candid and very open to sharing their experience. So what kind of meta messages are we giving them? We are very open, our partners are all part of a club, they exchange information, and they will tell it to you or the partner without mediation.
And then by being that bridge between two customers, how that it has an impact on Ocado as a brand.
So what you are trying to, the rewards that you're trying to reap there is, like I said, giving this idea that this is more than just a business that is here to sell you things. We are a business who cares, and we care about making it work for you. And how do we do that? By connecting the dots, by making everybody feel part of the same proposition and family, if you will, although family comes with caveats. But it's that openness and that non-mediation. It's not me just telling you this is great. I got these guys to show it to you rather than to tell it.
Okay. And then one thing is how that has an impact when you create content that connects with the brand, but then how creating content that connects helps the teams to achieve the objectives of the brand.
Because, for example, I'll give you a different example. Now I'm working in a separate company advising on content strategy. This particular challenge was a series of theme parks scattered all over Europe. In order to advise them, because what they did is they had a website on a theme park, right? And you had different types of content. They came from a place where their idea of engaging with the customer was, we're going to do it on social media. So they had an amazing TikTok, you can imagine, the guy riding the roller coaster, all of that kind of typical content. Now, in their heads, they didn't they didn't need to do any effort on the website. What we told them is, you're wrong, because the website is where people are coming to buy the tickets. How do you know in the first place that any of those guys who have come to your website has actually watched your TikToks?
Yeah.
There is no way to guarantee this. The only destination, the only platform that is guaranteed is the website, because that's where you're going to sell your tickets. Now, you want to sell tickets, you need to make sure, I mean, when you're selling a ticket, this sounds obvious, but if you think about it, you're not selling a piece of paper. What you are selling is an experience. So someone who wants to buy your experience will need to know that the experience is going to be good, that they are going to achieve their objectives. If they have small kids, say for example, there's going to be rides for them that they're going to enjoy. If they have teenagers, what if they have both teenagers and young kids? Is that going to work out for them, right? And then, do I have a place to nappy change?
Yeah.
Do I have to spend a fortune on food? Answer is probably yes. You just try not to say that very openly. Is there a place where I can park? All of these things. So what you had there is 3 different categories of content that you need to hit. So we organize it for them in terms of what we call core content, which is the experiences. Then we had the supplementary content about things like restaurants and shops. And then we had what we call enabling content, which was all of this: where do I park, where do I change the nappies, etc. So by ensuring that you had the needs covered, so what were the needs? So the first need was, I want to know if I'm going to have fun, yeah? So give me that perspective of, am I going to have fun or not? The second need is, can you help me, was the second category. Help me organize my day. Help me understand how I'm going to spend the day. And then the third category, the enabling content, fell into this bucket as well. So if you are making sure that your website can hit on all of these needs, then your chances of increasing your ticket sales are going to be greater. How are you going to measure? I can hear that question coming.
Yeah, how you're going to measure that. But before that, is that how, I was going to ask you first, the treatment then of the content is really important. How are you going to then engage it or present the content in a way that people feel, oh, this is useful and it's easy for me to find, to consume, and hence to go and buy the ticket?
Well, it was very much tied to each of these categories. So what we said is, for your core experiences, that needed to be very emotional. And we felt the best way to try and hit that was, you go down the route of execution, which I always say is the last step, but I think we're kind of walked down that path. So we said, videos. But this is important. For example, in their case, some of those theme parks had videos only the ride view. And I remember, you're going to laugh. I laugh. There was this video of this ride, those where you it's a vertical and you just go up and down. You dropped from the top.
Is it? Yeah.
So you can imagine this video, which was just the view from the ride. The only thing you could see was this. How does that communicate the experience? So my point to them was, you have got to produce something else that gives me different views, that gets some box pops of people enjoying the experience. It's not enough just to say, do a video, because you then get a video of something like that really it's not going to do anything for your customers or for yourself. So you are trying to understand, again, the need, kind of what is the wavelength in which you're going to encounter. So for the supplementary content, the restaurants and shops, my point was, this for the customer means they're going to spend more money, so it's going to be worth it. But it's going to have a combination of emotional, as in, is the food really yum? This was challenging as well, because there are only so many ways in which you can make a hamburger look like food porn. It's challenging. But, it's an element of that. And at the same time, can you tell me whether there is a kids menu? This is very important. So it's a mix of emotional and practical. So for that kind of content, what we recommended in terms of formats is just make it very visual infographic type, not a video. And for the enabling kind of content, it was all about hitting the practicals. How do I do this? This way. How do I do that? This way. Just in very short snippets of information. So when you get down to that level where you've understood what is the need that you're trying to hit and how that is going to tie back to your objectives, then you start figuring out formats and ways of delivering that kind of content.
And is there an argument to say that probably, Ocado as a technology, or then before the BBC and now a park, is easier because there is a story to tell, but is there a story to tell in brands that are more difficult, that are more dry?
There's always a story to tell, always.
Where do we find these stories? Where do we find this content?
I will the kind of easy tip here is go for the people, as I'll say. There's always, as long as there is a human being, there's a story. That will be like my top tip. In the case of Ocado, for example, it was very typical that we needed to create career content to attract talent. How do you do that? Look, honestly, don't give me a day in the life of a software developer. If I am a software developer, I know what a day in the life of a software developer looks like. So certain formulas you need to park and really look at the individuals. IBM, we used it as a clear example. They were extremely good at just showcasing passion projects of individuals. Here is this person who is a software developer. Turns out what they're passionate about is Lego cars. And then that's the story that you tell. And you start weaving in their role in IBM and how it impacts what they do. And then you have something that you can connect with. You have a person on the other side. It's much easier to connect with a person than with a computer or a SaaS. It's the same with Ocado. In the case of the partners, that's the reason. For example, we had another product on Ocado. We call it what is it that we call it? I've forgotten already. It's only been like a year since I left, and I've already forgotten this stuff. Problem solvers, that's it. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
We call it problem solvers of Ocado Group. So we heard from the partners, say for example, for them a top issue was personalization. I can just write you a piece on how you personalize products for supermarkets. Like partners already know this, I'm pretty sure. So the way we did it is just find the person who knows the most about it and make the focus on that person. This person is a problem solver. So how do you solve this problem? Tell us. And tell us about the story and how you go about it. And then it makes it human and it makes it personal. And you can see another face.
And then isn't there a danger that if you tell the stories, behind scenes of the company and the brand, people might fear that, but we're telling the secrets to our competitors?
That is challenging. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. That is really challenging. In my experience, companies do tend to be very conservative, and they feel like they're revealing secrets and stuff. There are ways around it. Biggest example I have from Ocado, and I was using just totally tricks that you will use as a journalist. We once wanted to make a piece on vertical farming. So Ocado had acquired a couple of vertical farming companies, and they were researching on the field, and we created like a picture gallery of one of these vertical farms. The legal department was thoroughly unhappy because we were revealing trade secrets. My copywriter came to me and said, what do? We can't say practically anything because legal is not happy. And I go, just leave it with me. So I went Googling it, and I just found out that most of the things that Ocado was doing in their vertical farms was just
They were already there.
Yeah. I found an article by the University of Missouri or something.
Yeah.
Just saying the same things. So the way we went around this problem was quoting the University of Missouri instead of quoting the Ocado person. And at that point, legal could do nothing because it's all in the public domain.
It's there, yes.
So there's always ways around. All I'm saying is, if you are practitioners of this stuff, Don't be disheartened. This is what you're going to find as a challenge, but there are always ways around it.
And is there any risk or downsides of creating content that connects?
Sorry, what was that?
Risks. Are there any risks when you create content that connects? When you invest time and resources on a team that creates this type of content?
Are you asking about risks? Sorry.
Risks, yes.
Well, it's always, right? You can get it completely wrong, but that's the reason why you need to keep listening. Listening is the other element of the equation. Is just to make sure that you have an ear to the ground. In the case of Ocado, it was relatively easy because our core audience was that of partners. So I'm not talking millions of people here, just a bunch of, actual people that we work with, and to kind of survey them and talk to them was relatively easy. If you are talking about customers, as in B2C propositions, obviously there's a whole host of data that you can utilize and try and obviously you as also former head of social media will know this, things which may sound very homemade, but they do make a difference.
Yeah.
Read in the comments on your social media posts.
Yeah.
You get an awful lot of information from that. So keeping an ear to the ground, the risk is that you get it wrong. This is the risk. Hopefully it doesn't mean that it derails any of your business objectives, but certainly, don't be arrogant, I'll say. Just,
And then
keep checking.
the question that you thought I was going to ask like 5 questions ago is, how do you measure success?
It's tricky, man. That is really tricky. So because it's linked all to these attribution models, it's not easy, but my advice will be just to try and set them up ahead of time. So before you undertake any program that entails content campaigns or content marketing of any sort, just be very clear as to what is it that you are looking to achieve, that objective, and what is the metric that is going to get you there. And by metric, I mean it could be a website data metric, but it could be also qualitative. It could be, I don't know, let's do a focus group after we've done this campaign and see what people thought about it. So the answer to your question is that it's really tricky. I don't think digital has gone as far as solving that problem completely just yet. So we kind of need to make do with what we have. But as long as you set it up in advance, then you should be on a good path.
I guess that when you create your hypothesis of what is the content that you want to put forward to the audiences or to your customers, then there you said, how do we measure the success? What is it? What are the indicators that we feel we're going to be happy with this at the end?
Yeah, exactly. So satisfaction and, again, I love a survey. I know it's not like solving all your problems, but I do like them as a tool. It's better than looking at a bunch of numbers on Google Analytics, in my personal experience. Because if you see, I don't know, page views have gone up, to pin down why that was the case is extremely hard. The same applies to bounce rates. Now, don't get me wrong, have I used them? I have widely, but just saying that one needs to be kind of aware of the limitations and what is it that you are really telling your execs that you achieved with that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, do we have any questions from the room, eh? So what about you? I'm going to ask you a question. What is because it's funny, Gabby works for Sky.
Yes.
So how do you make content that connects for an outlet that actually produces content?
Well, it's pretty much the same principle, not just Sky, but everything. Is how you understand what are the needs of the audience and what are the reasons of the audiences to consume your content. You need to give them reasons to stay. Right now, if you see how people use the phones, it's not just the platforms and it's not just, the websites. I don't know if you notice when you commute, you see people on their phones and they go on social media, then they get an email, then they just go and reply the email, then they just go back to a different platform, but then they, for some reason, remember that they have a WhatsApp and they open WhatsApp and they send it. So the competition is everywhere. So you need to give them a very, very strong reason to stay with you for at least for a few seconds. And it's like, what is it that they're looking for, and why are they opening Facebook at a specific time when they commute? Is it because they want to unwind? And then what is the kind of content that you're going to present to them at that point? If they're going to be on Twitter, is it more of a service that you're going to provide? Or if it's TikTok, it's more of an entertainment? And then how you can then reshape the content that you have for different platforms and different types and moods of the day. That is really important. And again, just look at the data and see how that works. I like to look at a lot of the engagement rate, retention and all that, but also when there is a lot of comments, and comments are very meaningful, where there is a lot of debate and discussion, that is really rich to me, because that allows me to see what the audience thought about the content and where can we take that forward. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.